Hello everyone and welcome back to another devlog of my game Project Giant Mech. Also a very big happy new year, and the project is officially 1 year old today. Can't believe I worked on one project for a whole year, but I'm glad that I did because it allowed me to improve my game development skills, especially in the game code architecture side and understanding the Unity game engine much better. It has not been easy and there were lots of highs and lows, but the trick is to keep yourself motivated by imagining about the end result or seeing how far you have come. Basically trying not to get burnt out. Speaking of being burnt out, I have noticed that 96% of you guys are not subscribed. Please subscribe and give this video a like. It will really help me out in the long run and help me with the YouTube algorithm. Alright, enough of this talk and now let's get started. For those that are new to the channel, I am Kamran Wali and I am solo developing my game called Project Giant Mech, which is a first-person shooter game with inspiration from Doom Eternal and EDF5 games. I'm trying to make the game fast-paced as Doom Eternal and give giant mechs and enemies like EDF5. There will be campaigns, character customization, upgrades, and weapon selection. Also, Project Giant Mech is not the name of the game. I'm still thinking of the name and there are a few names that I'm leaning towards and will announce it once I have the Steam page up. If you guys want to know more about the playstyle of the game, then I suggest you to check out my previous devlogs of the project so that you will get a better idea. Alright, in this devlog, I have made two new weapon types. The first one is the area damage over time type weapon, and in this case it is the acid pistol. This weapon fires projectile of acids. When these projectiles hit any object, it will generate a mist of acid. If any hurtable objects enter this mist, will then get hurt over time unless it goes out of the mist. These type of weapons can be used for crowd control when the player gets too overwhelmed. Also, I'm still deciding if to give a range limit to the projectile because as of now the projectile can continue going forward indefinitely. Here is a side-by-side view. Tell me which one you guys think looks and feels better. The next weapon is the trajectory weapon type, and in this case it is the grenade launcher. I would say making this weapon type was one of the most difficult one to make, especially the projectile trajectory path. I tried to get the trajectory path by calculating and manipulating the vector 3 and quaternion of the projectile. I did manage to get it work, but unfortunately there was one bug that when you fired looking straight up, then the projectile would just drop and instantly hurt the player. So I scratched that idea and used rigid body with gravity to get the trajectory path. Overall, I really enjoyed making this weapon, especially the rotating part of the weapon, which is a new feature that I made during this devlog. So every time this weapon is fired, the center part of the weapon will rotate. Okay, next is the equipment system. This is one of the most important features of the game. Equipment system is the feature that will allow the player to call in mechs, vehicles, and turrets and will also let the player use them. Have been working on this feature for over a month now. This is one of the features that I was only dreaming about a year ago. It finally feels awesome to see it in action. This feature is almost done. The only task that remains are an editor script for creating new equipments and fixing any issues relating to performance. The architecture of the game actually allowed for this feature to work smoothly. Basically, it is a combination of scriptable objects and cinemachine. The scriptable objects controls the player position, HUDs, and control devices. So when the player becomes active, all these scriptable objects will be controlled by the player, and if the equipment becomes active, then all these scriptable objects will be controlled by the equipment. So when the enemy requests for the player's position, it could be the player itself or the equipment depending on which one is active. The cinemachine was really helpful and saved a lot of time because it allows for smooth camera transition, especially going from player's first-person view to equipment's third-person view and vice versa. I did make an equipment model, which is the turret equipment. Modeling it was really fun as it was something new for the project. I did not get the chance to finish this equipment before this devlog, but did manage to use it for some other improvements. For now, you have only seen equipment using one weapon, but I made sure that every equipment will be able to use up to 3 different weapons. So when the player uses an equipment with one weapon, the equipment UI will update as well to show one weapon HUD. when the player uses an equipment with 2 weapons, then the equipment UI will update and show 2 weapon HUDs. Same goes for using an equipment with 3 weapons, and it will show HUD for 3 weapons. I made sure to make the equipment UI dynamic so that the correct number of weapon HUDs are shown. I also gave minimap icon to the turret equipment so that it will be easier for the player to know where the equipment is in the map and game world. Also, this gave me an idea that every equipment will start with 1 weapon and can be upgraded up to 3 weapons. Also, thinking about allowing player to mix up 3 different weapon types for each equipment. When I say equipment can use up to 3 weapons, that does not mean only 3 weapons, but by that I mean is that there are 3 different buttons which will fire, and each button can have any number of weapons attached to it. So for example, the top side can have 3 weapons and left clicking will fire all 3 weapons together. Alright, so now let's talk about the equipment transportation system. It starts by throwing an equipment calling marker. I'm really satisfied by how it looks and animates, especially the laser coming out of it. Even though the marker has a minimap icon, adding the laser would faster help the player know where the marker was thrown, especially during intense moments. Once the equipment marker is thrown, a cargo plane will emerge from the distance, fly over the marker, drop the equipment container, and will keep moving forward until it disappears far into the distance. I made a shader graph that slowly fades in and fades out from a given distance from the camera. I applied this shader graph to the plane so that when it is flying in or out from a long distance, there is a smooth fade transition happening and not just instantly coming in or going out. Here is how the shader graph looks. The shader graph works but does have an issue where objects' parts are rendered incorrectly. Here you can see the difference and what I mean. I tried fixing this but unfortunately couldn't fix this issue. Maybe in future I would need to use 2 models, one where the fading happens and once done will switch to a normal shader. But at the moment this is not an issue because it is used by the plane only, which is so far away that this issue can't be noticed. I think I will only use this shader graph for objects that are really far away. Once the equipment container lands, it will suck in air from outside and increase the pressure inside the container and finally explode and reveal the equipment. For now, I am thinking there should be a limit to how many equipments can be present in the game world because otherwise there will be performance issues if too many equipments are present. When the limit is crossed, the already present equipment will be destroyed and reused. I'm making a logic for the equipment system to know which alive equipment to recycle. Something like which one has the lowest ammo or lowest health or even both. I also created an editor script for the container creation. Now I can easily make any shit container that will fit the equipment. This will definitely save time in the future. During this devlog, I have also gotten into the habit of adding Unity's context menu to my scripts. This then allows me to call my custom methods in the editor through the inspector. This is very useful when I add scripts that requires certain setup to work. I can just call my custom method to fix the setup instead of wasting time through trials and errors. Here is an example of context menu. In my fire move effect script, I have a context menu method called setup effect. Now all this method does is add another component called timer countdown to the underscore target transform. Now if we add this script to an object and right click the script in the inspector, we can see that the setup effect method is there. If I ever forget to add a timer countdown script to the underscore target, then I can just call this method from the inspector and the script will work fine. To make my UI, I would use GIMP. I have been using GIMP for years now and really like the photo editing effect of it. But unfortunately, in some cases the image wouldn't look that good, especially while making any UI that has circles or diagonal lines in it. I would have to find ways to compensate for the issue by blurring the image a bit, which in itself made the image not look good at all. So to fix this issue, I have been learning and using Inkscape. So far it is going good and I can really see the difference between GIMP and Inkscape. As far as I know, Inkscape is a vector graphic editor, whereas GIMP is a raster graphic editor. Here is an example between the two. The left images are exported from Inkscape and the right images are exported from GIMP. All the images are the same size and PNG. When the UI is small, the differences are slightly noticeable, but when you enlarge them, then it becomes obvious that the edges in Inkscape image is smoother. Inkscape also exports in vector images, which makes the image smooth no matter what size the image is, but I need to research into it for it to work in Unity. Plus at the moment the normal raster images from Inkscape is working fine. I am in no way saying that GIMP is not good and won't be using it. I will still keep on using GIMP to give much more of the visual effects while using Inkscape to get better edges. Plus I have been using GIMP for years now, so I can dish out UIs or other images much more faster. Also, both of them are free and open source. I'll share a link to the differences between vector and raster images in the description below. You guys have probably noticed by now that the player HUD has been changed and made it smaller and compact but readable. The old HUD looked too big for me and seemed like taking up too much space in the screen. I will remake the HUD using Inkscape so that the diagonal lines will look a bit smoother. Alright, that is it for this devlog. My next target will be to finishing up the equipment system and testing it thoroughly for performance. Then we'll work with the hub world. We'll also try to switch to Unity's new input system. After that, we'll try to squeeze in character customization and finally fix any bugs that remains. These are the final targets for version 2, and after that we'll start to work with version 3, where I will try to upgrade the visual of the game a bit, have a main menu and much more. I am very grateful that you guys came so far into the video. Also, please like and subscribe. That will help me a lot with the YouTube algorithm. Tell me what you guys think about the progress of the game thus far in the comment section below. See you all in the next devlog. Take care and stay safe. K out.